Leah Torres felt the baby kick as she climbed the stairs to her apartment, one hand supporting her swollen belly. 8 months pregnant and every movement was an effort, but the doctor had assured her everything was progressing normally. Just one more month, and she'd finally meet her daughter. She'd already picked out the name, Lily Rose, after her grandmother. She was home early. The prenatal appointment had been shorter than expected, and she'd decided to surprise Marcus with his favorite takeout from the Thai place downtown. He'd been so stressed lately with work, coming home late, distracted and distant. Leah had chalked it up to the pressure of becoming a father, of preparing for the financial responsibility of a child. She should have known better. The apartment was quiet when she unlocked the door. Marcus's car was in the parking lot, so he was definitely home. Maybe he'd taken the afternoon off, finally allowing himself some rest. Leah smiled at the thought. They could spend a quiet afternoon together, eating pad thai and talking about nursery colors. She set down her keys and the takeout bag, toeing off her shoes. Her swollen feet ached, and she was looking forward to putting them up. As she walked toward the bedroom to change into something comfortable, she heard it, a sound that made her freeze. A woman's laugh. Low and intimate. Coming from her bedroom. Leah's heart began to pound. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Marcus was on a video call. Maybe he was watching something on his laptop. Maybe. She pushed open the bedroom door. Time seemed to slow as her brain tried to process what her eyes were seeing. Marcus was in their bed, the bed she'd slept in every night for the past 3 years, the bed where they'd conceived the baby growing inside her. And he wasn't alone. The woman beside him, tangled in sheets that still smelled like Leah's lavender detergent, turned her head. Recognition hit like a physical blow. Vanessa. Her sister. Her younger sister who'd been living with them for the past 4 months while she'd got back on her feet after losing her job. Leah. Marcus sat up quickly, but he didn't look ashamed. He looked annoyed, like she'd interrupted something important. "You're home early." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just irritation at her inconvenient timing. Leah couldn't speak. Her hand gripped the doorframe for support as the room tilted. Vanessa pulled the sheet up to cover herself, but her expression was cold, almost defiant. There was no remorse in her eyes, no horror at being caught. Just a calculating assessment, as if Leah were the intruder in this scenario. "How long?" Leah's voice came out as a whisper. "Does it matter?" Marcus swung his legs out of bed, pulling on his boxers with casual ease. "It's not like our marriage was working anyway. I'm pregnant with your child." "A child I never wanted," Marcus said, and the words landed like blows. "You trapped me, Leah. You knew I wasn't ready for kids, and you got pregnant anyway. What did you expect?" Leah's hand moved to her belly instinctively, protectively. "You said you were happy about the baby. You said." "I said what you wanted to hear. Because you threatened to expose the accounting irregularities at my firm if I left. So I stayed. But I'm done pretending." The accounting irregularities. Leah had discovered them 6 months ago while helping Marcus organize tax documents, creative bookkeeping that crossed the line into fraud. She'd confronted him, terrified he'd go to prison, begging him to come clean. He'd promised to fix it, to make things right. She'd never threatened him. That was a lie. But it was clear now, he'd convinced himself she was the villain so he could justify his betrayal. "Get out," Leah said quietly. Marcus laughed. "It's my apartment. My name on the lease. You get out." Pain lanced through Leah's abdomen, sharp, sudden, stealing her breath. She gasped, doubling over, and felt something shift inside her. Wetness ran down her legs. Oh God! Panic flooded through her. "My water just broke. Marcus, we need to go to the hospital. Now." Marcus looked at her, at the puddle forming on the hardwood floor, and shook his head. I have a meeting in an hour. An important one. Take an Uber. Leah stared at him, unable to believe what she was hearing. I'm in labor. With your daughter. And you're telling me to take an Uber? It's probably false labor. First babies take forever anyway. Marcus was getting dressed now, pulling on his suit pants, his dress shirt. Besides, your friend Hannah lives nearby. Call her. Another contraction hit, stronger this time. Leah grabbed the doorframe, her knees nearly buckling from the pain. When she looked up, Vanessa was watching her with those cold eyes, and Marcus was checking his reflection in the mirror, adjusting his tie. Neither of them moved to help her. In that moment, through the pain and betrayal and crushing disappointment, Leah felt something shift inside her that had nothing to do with labor. Something hardened in her chest, cold and sharp and permanent. She would remember this. She would remember being abandoned in her most vulnerable moment by the two people who should have protected her. And somehow, someday, they would both understand exactly what they'd thrown away. You're right, Leah said, her voice steadier than she felt. I'll call Hannah. She turned and walked away from them, each step agony, contractions coming faster now. Behind her, she heard Marcus leave, heard the apartment door close. Heard Vanessa still moving around in the bedroom, apparently planning to stay. Leah made it to the living room and grabbed her phone with shaking hands. But before she called Hannah, she did something else. She opened her email and forwarded every document about Marcus's fraud to her personal account. Then she called her lawyer. Only then did she call for help, laboring alone in the apartment she'd thought was home, preparing to bring her daughter into a world that had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more lonely. But as another contraction gripped her, Leah made a promise to the baby inside her: they would survive this. They would thrive. And the people who'd abandoned them would regret it for the rest of their lives. The Uber driver kept glancing at Leah in the rearview mirror with increasing concern as she breathed through another contraction in the back seat. She'd managed to grab her hospital bag, packed and ready by the door for weeks, and her phone, but little else. The apartment building receded behind them, and with it, the life she'd thought she was building. How far apart are the contractions? The driver asked, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. 5 minutes, Leah gasped. Maybe less. I'm going as fast as I can, honey. Just hold on. Northwestern Memorial Hospital appeared like a beacon. The driver pulled directly up to the emergency entrance and refused Leah's offer of a tip. Go have that baby. And whoever left you alone like this is a damn fool. If only she knew. The next hours blurred into a nightmare of pain and loneliness. Nurses moved efficiently around her, checking monitors, adjusting IVs, their voices professionally soothing but impersonal. Leah labored alone in a sterile room, the empty chair beside her bed a glaring reminder of what should have been. She'd called Hannah from the Uber, and her best friend had promised to come immediately. But Hannah lived in the suburbs, and Chicago traffic was brutal. Leah faced the hardest work of her life surrounded by strangers, without the man who'd promised to be there through everything. Where's your partner? A nurse asked gently during a cervical check. Would you like us to call someone? He's not coming. The words tasted like ash. It's just me. The nurse's expression shifted, sympathy mixed with something harder. Then let's make sure you have everything you need. You're not alone here, okay? But Leah felt alone. Desperately, crushingly alone as her body worked to bring new life into the world. Each contraction was a reminder of Marcus's absence, of Vanessa's cold eyes, of the family she'd thought she had dissolving like smoke. Hannah burst into the room 2 hours later, breathless and furious. That bastard. That absolute bastard. Where is he? I'll kill him myself. Leah had never been so grateful to see anyone. Hannah gripped her hand through the contractions, breathed with her, wiped her forehead with cool cloths. She was everything Marcus should have been and wasn't. "You're doing amazing," Hannah murmured during a particularly brutal contraction. "You're so strong, Leah. Stronger than you know." 12 hours after her water broke, at 3:47 in the morning, Lily Rose Torres entered the world screaming her fury at the universe. The nurses placed her on Leah's chest, and every ounce of pain and betrayal dissolved in the face of overwhelming love. Lily had dark hair like Marcus, but her eyes, when she briefly opened them, were pure Leah. She was perfect and tiny and completely dependent, and Leah felt her heart crack open in a way that was both terrifying and beautiful. "Hi, baby girl," Leah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm your mama. And I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt you the way they hurt me. You are safe. You are loved. You are everything." Hannah was crying too, taking pictures on Leah's phone, capturing this moment of triumph and heartbreak. "She's beautiful, Leah. Absolutely beautiful." As Leah was moved to a recovery room with Lily swaddled in her arms, her phone finally buzzed. A text from Marcus: "Heard you had the baby. Congrats. We'll come by tomorrow to see her." Leah stared at the message, at the casual tone, as if he'd simply been busy rather than deliberately abandoning her. Something inside her hardened further. She didn't respond. Instead, she called the hospital security desk. "I need to add someone to my no-visitor list. Marcus Torres. He's not to be allowed in my room or near my daughter under any circumstances." Then she called her lawyer, at 4 a.m., knowing the woman's emergency line was meant for exactly this kind of situation. "Leah? What's wrong? I need divorce papers drawn up immediately. And I need to file for full custody. He abandoned me during labor, Jennifer. Left me to face childbirth alone so he could attend a business meeting. I have witnesses. Hospital records. Everything we need." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "I'll have papers ready by end of day." "And Leah? I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just make him pay." Leah hung up and looked down at Lily, who was sleeping peacefully against her chest. The baby's tiny hand was curled into a fist, and Leah gently uncurled the fingers, marveling at how perfect they were. "It's just you and me, Lily Rose," she whispered. "But that's okay. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be extraordinary." As dawn broke over Chicago, painting the hospital room in shades of gold and rose, Leah made a decision. She wouldn't just survive this betrayal. She would transform it. She would become the kind of woman her daughter could be proud of, strong, independent, unbreakable. And Marcus and Vanessa? They would learn that some prices are too high to pay, and some betrayals come with consequences they could never imagine. Karma was patient. But it was also inevitable. And their reckoning was just beginning. Marcus stood outside what used to be his apartment, staring at the new locks in disbelief. Taped to the door was an envelope with his name on it. Inside, he found divorce papers and a note in Leah's handwriting: "Your belongings are in storage unit 247. The code is Lily's birthdate. Don't contact me except through my lawyer." What the hell? He tried his key anyway, knowing it wouldn't work but unable to accept this was happening. 3 days. He'd been gone 3 days closing a deal that would set them up financially for years, and she'd changed the locks? His phone buzzed. A text from his business partner: "Greg, we need to talk. Now. Don't come to the office." Marcus's stomach dropped. Something in Greg's tone set off alarms. He called immediately. "Marcus, where are you?" Greg's voice was tight with panic. "At my apartment." "What's going on?" "Someone sent an anonymous tip to the SEC. About the accounting discrepancies in the Hendricks deal. They have documentation, Marcus. Internal memos. Emails. Everything. The phone nearly slipped from Marcus's hand. That's impossible. Those files were encrypted. They know everything. The FBI is involved. I've already been questioned. They're coming for you next. Marcus felt the world tilt. Who sent the tip? I don't know. It came from an anonymous email account. But Marcus, whoever it was, has been planning this for months. They had access to everything. Leah. It had to be Leah. She'd helped him organize his tax documents, had seen the files. But she'd been 8 months pregnant, focused on the baby. When would she have had time to? His phone buzzed with another call. His lawyer. Don't say anything to anyone, the attorney warned. The FBI wants to interview you tomorrow. I'm trying to arrange immunity, but Marcus, this looks bad. Really bad. Over the next week, Marcus's life imploded with stunning speed. The business deal he'd abandoned Leah for fell apart when the investors discovered the fraud investigation. His assets were frozen pending the criminal inquiry. His face appeared on the evening news, identified as a person of interest in a multi-million-dollar fraud case. And Vanessa? She disappeared the moment his bank accounts were locked. Marcus tried calling her, desperate for someone, anyone, to be on his side. The calls went straight to voicemail. He showed up at her new apartment, paid for with money he'd given her, and found it empty, a "for rent" sign already posted. She'd taken what she could and run. Meanwhile, Leah remained unreachable. Her lawyer responded to his frantic calls with cold professionalism. Ms. Torres was not interested in any contact beyond custody arrangements, which would be supervised visitation only, pending the outcome of his criminal case. I need to see my daughter, Marcus begged during one call. I have rights. You abandoned your pregnant wife during labor, Jennifer's voice was ice. You committed fraud that endangered your family's financial stability. You forfeited your rights when you chose to betray them. Be grateful Leah is offering any visitation at all. Marcus sat in his temporary housing, a studio apartment in a building he never would have looked at 6 months ago, and finally allowed himself to feel the weight of what he'd lost. Not just the money or the reputation, but Leah. The woman who'd loved him despite his flaws, who'd believed in him, who'd given him a daughter he'd been too selfish and stupid to appreciate. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. How does it feel to lose everything? Vanessa. Even now, she couldn't resist twisting the knife. Marcus blocked the number and opened his photo app, scrolling back to happier times. Pictures of Leah laughing at dinner, Leah showing him the positive pregnancy test, Leah at her baby shower surrounded by friends who'd now cut him completely out of their lives. He'd thrown it all away for what? A few moments of selfish pleasure? A business deal built on lies? The FBI interview was scheduled for tomorrow. His lawyer had warned him to expect charges, multiple counts of fraud, each carrying significant prison time. His once bright future had narrowed to a single point: survival. And somewhere across the city, Leah was caring for their daughter, building a life that no longer included him. Not because she was cruel, but because he'd made himself unworthy of being included. Marcus finally understood. This wasn't just karma. It was justice. Cold, impartial, and absolutely deserved. The courtroom was packed for the sentencing. Marcus sat beside his lawyer, wearing a suit that no longer fit quite right. He'd lost weight during the trial, stress and guilt eating away at him. Behind him, he could feel the eyes of former colleagues, investors who'd lost money, and reporters documenting his fall from grace. And in the back row, though he'd been told she might not come, sat Leah. She looked different. Stronger somehow, her dark hair pulled back, her expression composed. She wore a simple navy dress and held herself with a dignity that made Marcus's chest ache. He tried to catch her eye, but she looked right through him as if he were a stranger. The trial had been brutal. Evidence of systematic fraud spanning 3 years, falsified documents, money laundering. Marcus had tried to claim ignorance, to suggest his partner Greg had been the mastermind. But the emails told a different story, emails he'd stupidly sent from his work account, documenting his deliberate participation. Greg had taken a plea deal and testified against him. Another betrayal, though Marcus could hardly complain. He'd betrayed everyone who'd ever trusted him. Why should Greg be different? The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours before finding him guilty on all counts. Now, Judge Patricia Hendricks, no relation to the defrauded company, reviewed the sentencing recommendations. "Mr. Torres, is there anything you'd like to say before I pronounce sentence?" Marcus stood on shaking legs. His lawyer had prepared a statement about remorse and rehabilitation, but looking at Leah's impassive face in the back row, the words died in his throat. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "To the investors, to my former partners, to everyone I hurt. I was arrogant and selfish, and I deserve whatever punishment you decide." He almost left it there. But then he looked at Leah again and added, "Most of all, I'm sorry to my wife, my ex-wife, and my daughter. I abandoned them when they needed me most. I betrayed their trust in ways I can never repair. That's a different kind of prison, and it's one I'll serve for the rest of my life." The judge's expression didn't soften. "Remorse expressed after conviction is easy, Mr. Torres. Remorse expressed through action before you were caught, that would have been meaningful. As it stands, you showed a pattern of deliberate criminal behavior, endangering not just investors but your own family's financial security." She paused, flipping through documents. "The prosecution has requested 5 years. Your defense has requested probation with restitution. I've reviewed the evidence, the victim impact statements, and your lack of cooperation until you were facing overwhelming evidence." Marcus held his breath. "I'm sentencing you to 3 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You will also pay full restitution to all affected parties, and you are barred from working in any financial capacity for 10 years following your release." 3 years. It could have been worse. It could have been much worse. But as guards approached to take him into custody immediately, Marcus felt his knees nearly buckle. "Wait," he said desperately. "Can I see my daughter?" "Just once before." "That's not this court's decision," the judge said firmly. "Take him." As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, he looked back one last time. Leah was standing now, and their eyes finally met across the crowded courtroom. He tried to communicate something, apology, regret, love, but her expression remained unchanged. She'd come to watch him sentenced. Not to support him or forgive him, but to witness justice being served. And then she turned and walked out, disappearing into the hallway before he could say anything else. His lawyer patted his shoulder sympathetically. "I'll file for visitation rights once you're settled. But Marcus, you need to prepare yourself. Given what you did, leaving her during labor, the fraud, the court may deny any unsupervised contact for years." Marcus nodded numbly. Years without seeing Lily grow up. Years of knowing she was learning to walk, to talk, to become a person, all without him. That was the real punishment, far worse than any prison cell. Meanwhile, Vanessa was facing her own reckoning. When their parents had learned the full story, not just the affair, but that she'd watched Leah go into early labor and done nothing, they'd cut her off completely. Her mother had actually said, "I don't know you anymore," before hanging up and blocking her number. Without Marcus's money or her family's support, Vanessa had been forced to take whatever jobs she could find. Marcus had heard through mutual acquaintances that she was working 3 jobs, barely scraping by, living in a studio apartment the size of his prison cell would be. He should have felt satisfaction at her downfall. Instead, he felt nothing but emptiness. They'd destroyed each other chasing something that wasn't real, and the only person who'd truly lost was Lily, a little girl who'd grow up knowing her father chose wrong at every turn. As Marcus was processed into federal custody, as his personal belongings were catalogued and his freedom stripped away, he finally understood, some betrayals echo forever. And karma didn't just arrive, it moved in permanently, making sure you never forgot the price of your choices. Leah sat on a park bench watching Lily toddle after a butterfly, her laughter bright and pure in the afternoon sun. At 2 years old, Lily was fearless and joyful, with her father's dark curls and her mother's determination. She'd taken her first steps at 11 months, said her first word at 10, and had been a force of nature ever since. "She's beautiful," David said beside her, his hand finding hers naturally. "She has your smile." Leah looked at the man she'd been dating for 6 months, Dr. David Chen, a pediatrician she'd met when Lily had a bad ear infection. He was kind, patient, and treated Lily like she was precious. Everything Marcus hadn't been. "She has Marcus's curls though," Leah said quietly. It didn't hurt to say his name anymore, though it had taken a long time to reach this point. "Does that bother you?" "No. She's her own person. And honestly, I'm grateful she has something of his. Even if he doesn't deserve her." David squeezed her hand. He knew the whole story. She'd been honest from their first date about her history, about the betrayal and the single motherhood and the emotional scars she was still healing. He'd listened without judgment and then asked her out again. Leah's life had transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined 2 years ago. She'd left her old job, too many memories, too many people who knew her story, and started her own consulting firm. The freedom and flexibility allowed her to be present for Lily while building something entirely hers. She'd bought a townhouse in a good school district, made new friends through Mommy and Me classes, and slowly rebuilt herself into someone stronger than she'd been before. The woman who'd loved Marcus desperately, who'd made excuses for his controlling behavior, felt like a stranger now. Hannah remained her rock, along with her parents who'd stepped in to help with childcare and emotional support. The family Leah had feared losing had rallied around her instead, showing her what real love looked like. "Leah Torres?" She looked up to find a delivery person holding an envelope. "That's me. Certified mail." Leah signed for it, her stomach dropping when she saw the return address, the federal correctional institution where Marcus was serving his sentence. Inside was a handwritten letter and a formal request for visitation rights. "Dear Leah, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I'm being released next month on good behavior, and I'm writing to ask if you'd consider allowing me to meet Lily. Not regularly, not unsupervised, whatever terms you set, I'll accept. I just want her to know I exist, that I'm trying to be better, even if I failed her before she was born. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking for a chance to be something, anything, in my daughter's life. She deserves better than the father I was. Maybe I can become the father she needs. Marcus." Leah stared at the letter for a long moment. Beside her, David read over her shoulder and then looked at her carefully. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." Leah watched Lily, who'd given up on the butterfly and was now examining a flower with intense concentration. "Part of me wants to protect her from him forever. From the disappointment, from the possibility that he'll let her down again. And the other part? The other part knows she deserves a chance to decide for herself one day. To know her father tried, even if he failed. To not wonder why her mama kept them apart." David nodded. "Whatever you decide, I support you. And Lily is lucky to have you making these choices for her." That evening, after Lily was asleep, Leah sat at her kitchen table with Jennifer on the phone, discussing options. "You could deny the request entirely," Jennifer said. "Given his abandonment and criminal behavior, the court would likely support you. But supervised visitation once a month might actually benefit Lily long-term. She'll grow up knowing her father, even if he's not a central figure. And you'll be able to tell her honestly that you gave him chances." Leah made her decision. "Set up supervised visitation. Once monthly, 2 hours, at a neutral location with a monitor present. And Jennifer? Make it clear this is for Lily's benefit, not his. One misstep, one broken promise, and it's over forever. Understood. When Marcus received the notification, he broke down in his cell. It wasn't forgiveness, Leah had made that clear in her attorney's letter. But it was mercy, which was more than he deserved. His first visitation was scheduled for 2 weeks after his release. Marcus showed up 30 minutes early to the supervised visitation center, nervous and desperate. When Leah arrived with Lily, a beautiful toddler he barely recognized from the newborn he'd never held, his eyes filled with tears. "Lily, this is Marcus," Leah said carefully, not calling him Daddy. That title had to be earned. Lily looked at him with curious eyes, Leah's eyes, and offered him the toy she was holding. "Play." It was such a simple gesture, such innocent trust, and Marcus felt his heart break all over again. "Yeah, sweet girl. We can play." Leah watched from across the room with the monitor, her expression neutral. She didn't stay for the full 2 hours, she'd arranged for the center to contact her when the session ended. She had better things to do than watch Marcus try to bond with the daughter he'd abandoned. As she left, she felt David's text arrive. "How are you?" "I'm okay," she typed back. "Taking Lily to the park. Want to join us?" "On my way." Leah smiled, slipping her phone into her pocket. She'd survived the worst betrayal of her life and emerged stronger. She'd raised a beautiful daughter alone, built a successful career, and found someone who treated her with the respect and love she deserved. Marcus would be part of Lily's life now, in carefully controlled doses. But he would never again be part of hers. That chapter was closed, locked, and buried. And Leah was finally, completely free. Karma hadn't just punished Marcus, it had liberated her. And that, she thought as she drove toward her future, was the sweetest justice of all.